I have something to say, and Bumgyu, Huninkai, Taehan, Yeonjun, and Subin will not say it, so I will. Hey you guys, it's DW Comments where I'm at the comments around here unless you want to. Today we have a video regarding one of the rising Korean pop male groups from Big Hit Entertainment, also known as BTS's label. And I want to talk about them mostly because of the fact that Tomorrow by Together, also known as TXT to some, is such an interesting group from my concept perspective. But I want to get into why I believe their concept is different and why they're so unique and why they're so interesting within the sphere of not just K-pop, but in the sphere of male pop group music. So without further ado, let's get started. So one of the biggest things I wanted to get into about TXT is who they are. For those of you who don't know, we're having a quick rundown. So let's do this. Five-member group spearheaded by none other than BTS's label Big Hit Entertainment, and they are a group that debuted in March 2019 with the song Crown, which garnered huge, 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 huge musical notoriety. I think that most people don't know that Tomorrow By Together's song Crown actually garnered a lot more than people thought it did. Now, from a chart perspective, it didn't gain as much traction. I mean, it had a number one on the World Singles Chart from the US, and of course, it had an entry on the Gallon Chart, which is also known as the Billboard Chart of South Korea. But it was notable that the song itself was gaining a lot of listicles from different articles and different, companies such as Dazed and Billboard for the song itself showcasing something refreshing in the Korean pop sphere for debuts. Now, a lot of boy groups were not coming out with this adolescent, cutesy boy next door debut on the jump, especially with such a huge platform that they had. They could have came out with something dark and people would have fell over it. But it was the opposite that happened. And I think that this was a smart idea from Big Hit Entertainment as a whole because it made them distinctly showcase what BTS were from their beginnings and what Tomorrow By Together was supposed to be and what they have grown into be. And eventually that led them into having success for both their album and single. Their single garnered a lot of that critical notoriety while their album garnered, number one on the Gallon chart itself. And it showed that also not only did the album do well in South Korea, but appearing in America, which it became one of the very rare times a K-pop group in their debut had popped up on an American chart, especially the main chart. So it showcased that Tomorrow By Together from their jump was definitely destined for something different. Overall, Tomorrow Together would go on to garner platinum records from South Korea. They were going to gain gold singles in Japan and go on to have three number one albums in South Korea, three number one albums in Japan, and of course two entries, namely the highest entry from a fourth generation group, 26 on the Billboard Top 200 with their album recent called Miniso Blue Hour. Now, I say all this to say that 2 Hours Together definitely has a driving force that's grabbing people's attention in these respective countries such as Japan and the US, and they're garnering a following. And they're doing it on the backs of their own. They're not trying to be the next BTS. They're trying to be something different. Obviously, that's why Big Hit Entertainment crafted them in the way they have. Which goes on to my next part about what makes Tomorrow by Together. Tomorrow by Together, at its core, is a concept driven group that has created a concept that is within a concept. It is the youth concept, but utilized in a way where the audience is being told the narrative of youth through adolescent hypervisualization. Now, what does that mean? Easy. You're telling the narrative from a whimsical and fantastical perspective and not diluting it in realism. Now, I won't say dilute because that's a bit of a negative connotation because what made BTS so popular is that realism element. They didn't sugarcoat it. It was very much so a play by play element of the youth at the time, how they visualized the world within their adolescence. And that's what made the most beautiful moment in life so different for BTS and why it's made them stand out and why they became, who they became. But with Tomorrow By Together's perspective, that fantastical narrative and that whimsy narrative and that subtle subconscious elements of realism and maturity is what's going to make them just so stand out. It's going to make them, it's what's made them gain so much of a following in the first place. It's why places like Japan have just cling to them because they can see that there's something different. They're not trying to be super dark and edgy. I mean, we've had so many groups that have done dark and edgy concepts. There's nothing wrong with that, but you can obviously tell that that narrative of like switching through the darkness of realism and the anguish and the cutting edge, cutthroat elements of life, and being it that it's being framed within this type of way and this type of concept within the youth concept itself is so different. I mean, you can go from Crown in the beginning where they decided to explain the horns on their head, that crown element, but then telling it from I got my first chest hair, I love it, look what's happening to me, and then transitioning from that to pushing into, I'm scared my friends are gonna leave me. I feel like they don't know who I am anymore. With the song like "Can't You See Me," it's really clever on Big Hit Entertainment's part to do this because it's a truly big counterpoint to Big Hit Entertainment's BTS, push in their beginnings from going from hip hop to the youth concept in the more realism era. I mean, it's so standout. It's so sick. Now, if you want to play by play about how that adolescent hypervisualization is gonna come through and how it has progressed itself throughout the last 19 music videos, within the context of the last two short films such as Eternally and Magic Island, please, 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 I encourage you to watch Mara's video called "No One Is Driving the Chariot." It is a very interesting video. I would recommend it highly because it tells you play by play about what is the context of their videos, because at the end of the day, it's true. I agree with her that no one is driving the chariot. No one is really telling the narrative in a specific way to be framed. You're not even getting the answers at the end of these short films. You're getting these type of like scenarios and thematics, but they're not telling anything. And it's not in a bad way, like, oh, what the heck did I waste my time on? It's like what just happened? Like, what did just I experience? Is there something I'm missing? Why didn't I learn anything? You're starting to do a deep dive, and you're starting to ask questions about why that they're forcefully not answering you, because at the end of the day, that's the point. You're not going to understand why. You're just not supposed to know the answer why, because in life, you're not always given the answers. That's literally the narrative. If you want a narrative, that's what brought together this visuals I've told you, is that there is a narrative, but there's not always an answer, and you're not always going to get an answer up front or outright. And it's pretty clever, like I said, on Big Hit's creative team's part, because it's so interesting. And the fact that the boys themselves are taking part in the narrative on a musical level is really showcasing that the fact that they can grow and become something even more of a force to be reckoned with, which I just love and just appreciate. But yeah, that's pretty much how I would basically say about Tomorrow By Together as a whole. And that's it. That's all I have to say to you guys. With that being said, please make sure to subscribe to my channel, like the video. Please discuss more if you are a Tomorrow By Together fan. Let me know about your favorite songs, about what you think about the narrative is, why you think the way they are, and what drove you to like them. And if you don't know them, why you're interested, why I've made you possibly curious. I hope to know that in the comment section below. And with that being said, I'm out.